Before a man ever lives with a woman, he must first meet the woman within himself. Because what we call love is often not between two people. It's a dialogue between two souls trying to recognize themselves through one another. Carl Jung believed that every man carries within him an inner feminine, the anima, a mysterious, emotional, and intuitive part of the psyche that most men never confront. Instead, they project her onto the women they meet. They fall in love not with the real woman, but with their own unacknowledged soul reflected in her eyes. That's why passion turns to confusion, why attraction becomes obsession, why love, without awareness, leads to destruction. A woman does not complete you, she reveals you. She mirrors the parts of you that have remained hidden, repressed, or denied. And if you don't know yourself deeply, her presence will overwhelm you. You'll mistake emotion for destiny, dependency for devotion, and control for connection. To live with a woman consciously, a man must learn to see her not as an answer, but as a reflection. He must understand that she is both muse and mirror, both chaos and creation, the living symbol of his own depth. Only the man who has faced his inner anima can stand in love without losing himself. Only he can love without clinging, guide without controlling, and stay strong without closing his heart. This is not a story about relationships, it's a story about self-mastery. Because before you can truly live with a woman, you must first understand the one who already lives inside you.
Carl Jung once said that every man carries within him the eternal image of woman. It is not the image of one woman, nor of many, but the timeless reflection of his own hidden nature, the anima. This anima is the gateway to everything mysterious in a man's heart, his intuition, his imagination, his capacity to feel and connect. Yet, in most men, she remains buried, misunderstood, or projected outward. When a man meets a woman, he often does not see her. He sees the reflection of his own soul in her form. He falls in love not with reality, but with recognition. This is why Jung described the woman as the mirror of the man's inner world. She reflects back to him all that he does not yet understand about himself, his emotional depths, his insecurities, his yearning for beauty, meaning, and completion. When a man looks into the eyes of a woman and feels that electric pull, that deep and almost mystical sense of connection, what he is truly meeting is his own unconscious calling him home. The woman becomes the bridge between his surface and his depth, between his logic and his longing. And yet, this same mirror that offers insight can also become a trap. For if he does not recognize that what he loves in her lives also within himself, he will become enslaved by the reflection. He will chase her endlessly, trying to possess the parts of his soul he has not yet owned. Every man has experienced this, the magnetic pull toward a woman who seems to awaken something ancient within him. She appears like destiny, as if the universe conspired to bring her into his life. But Jung would warn that this feeling is rarely about the woman herself. It is the power of projection, the mind's attempt to externalize what it cannot yet face internally. The anima, when unrecognized, becomes a seductress. She makes the man believe that she exists outside him. She convinces him that his wholeness depends on her approval, her affection, her presence. And so he gives away his power, mistaking the outer woman for the inner divine. But the purpose of this projection is not punishment, it is revelation. The woman's role is not to complete the man, but to reveal to him where he is incomplete. Every conflict, every misunderstanding, every moment of emotional turbulence in a relationship is a message from the unconscious. The woman becomes a living symbol, a sacred mirror reflecting back his own evolution. If the man resists this reflection, he will experience love as suffering. He will see the woman as unpredictable, mysterious, even dangerous, because she constantly challenges his self-image. She exposes his shadows. She awakens his repressed emotions, his forgotten tenderness, his fears of vulnerability. In her presence, he cannot remain numb. But if he has the courage to look into that mirror without flinching, to see not what he wants to see, but what is actually there, then love becomes the greatest teacher of all. He learns that every emotional reaction, every surge of jealousy or anger, every spark of desire is not about her, but about himself. She is not the cause, she is the mirror. Jung believed that no man can reach psychological maturity without confronting his anima. She is not merely the feminine counterpart of his masculine energy. She is the soul's connection to life itself. Through her, he finds meaning, creativity, intuition, and empathy. But to access her gifts, he must first stop projecting her onto the women he meets. This requires awareness. When a man looks at a woman and feels that magnetic energy, he must ask, what part of myself is she awakening? What quality in her am I denying within me? If she seems nurturing, perhaps he has neglected his own capacity for self-compassion. If she appears wild and free, maybe he has suppressed his own spontaneity. If she feels mysterious, maybe he has lost touch with the unknown parts of his own psyche. Every woman a man encounters serves as a reflection of his inner landscape. The attraction he feels is the soul's attempt to integrate what has been left behind. The more he understands this, the less he becomes a prisoner of his emotions. He no longer seeks completion in another. He begins to cultivate it within. In mythology, this inner feminine has always been symbolized by the muse, the goddess, the siren, or the lover. She calls to the hero, luring him away from his safe, rational world and into the depths of the unconscious. Many heroes resist. They fear losing control. They fear the unknown. But those who dare to descend into that realm emerge transformed. They return with wisdom, creativity, and emotional wholeness. The same journey awaits every man. The woman he loves is both his greatest temptation and his greatest teacher. Through her, he confronts the hidden chambers of his own being, and in those chambers, he finds the key to true strength, not the strength of domination, but the strength of understanding. A man who refuses to look into this mirror will live his life chasing reflections. He will move from one relationship to another, always seeking the perfect woman, never realizing that what he truly seeks is his own soul. He will demand from women what only inner work can provide: peace, purpose, identity, and each disappointment will feel like betrayal, when in truth, it is guidance. But the man who accepts the mirror learns to love differently. He no longer demands, he listens. He no longer projects, he perceives. His love becomes less about possession and more about awareness. He sees the woman not as an object of desire, but as a sacred presence, the embodiment of everything that is emotional, mysterious, and eternal within himself. Carl Jung taught that the feminine within a man connects him to the divine. The anima is not weakness. She is the source of imagination, empathy, and intuition. To repress her is to live half a life. To embrace her is to live fully, to experience both logic and passion, both strength and sensitivity. Living with a woman, then, is not about control or compatibility. It is about consciousness. It is about recognizing that her moods, her silence, her intuition are all invitations for you to meet your own depths. She does not challenge your authority. She challenges your authenticity. She doesn't threaten your masculinity. She awakens your humanity. Every man must understand, when you live with a woman, you are living with your reflection. Every argument, every act of love, every quiet night together is a mirror showing you who you truly are. The more conscious you become, the clearer that mirror becomes. Do not fear the feminine soul. Within her lies your evolution. She is not the end of your independence. She is the beginning of your integration. And only the man who dares to look deeply into that mirror, without denial, without pride, will discover what Jung called the true union of opposites, the harmony of masculine and feminine, the wholeness of the human spirit. This is the first step in understanding a woman, not to conquer her, not to explain her, but to see her as the living reflection of everything within you that still seeks the light.
Carl Jung once warned that what we do not make conscious appears in our life as fate. Nowhere is this truer than in love. Every man believes he is choosing the woman who fascinates him, the one whose eyes, laughter, or mystery feel like destiny. But in truth, he is not meeting her. He is meeting himself. The woman becomes the screen upon which he projects everything he has not yet understood, accepted, or integrated within his own psyche. This is the dangerous illusion of love, the projection of the Anima. To the unconscious man, the woman is not a person, but a symbol. She embodies his hopes, his fears, his lost innocence, and his unhealed wounds. She becomes his salvation and his destruction all at once. And the tragedy is that he does not realize this until the illusion begins to crumble. When a man projects his anima, he creates an ideal, an image of perfection. He believes he has found the one, the woman who understands him completely, who embodies everything he has ever desired. He places her on a pedestal and worships her like a goddess. For a time, this illusion feels like paradise. Every word she speaks seems profound, every gesture divine. He believes he has finally found the missing half of his soul. But projection is a trick of the unconscious, a spell cast by the psyche to force growth through heartbreak. Because the woman, being human, cannot live up to the divine image she has placed upon her. The goddess he loves exists only in his mind. So when reality begins to surface, when flaws appear, when differences emerge, his paradise begins to collapse. The goddess becomes mortal, and the man feels betrayed. He does not understand that the betrayal is not hers, it is his. He betrayed himself by mistaking his inner world for outer reality. He demanded that a woman carry the weight of his unlived emotions, his idealized fantasies, his repressed needs. And no human can bear that weight for long. This is why love, when unconscious, so often turns to resentment. The same man who once said, "You're everything to me," now says, "You've changed." But it is not she who has changed. It is his projection that has begun to fade.
He is forced to see the woman as she truly is, and that truth feels like loss. Jung wrote that projection is the natural beginning of every love story, but it must not be its end. It is the necessary illusion that draws two souls together so that they may confront their own inner realities. The problem arises when the man refuses to withdraw his projection, when he clings to the fantasy rather than facing the self. To love consciously, a man must learn to separate the woman from the image. He must ask himself, am I seeing her, or am I seeing my own longing reflected back at me? When he feels that overwhelming attraction, that obsessive pull, he must pause and examine what it truly means. What is she awakening in me? What forgotten part of my soul is asking to be seen through her? Projection is not evil. It is the psyche's way of guiding growth. Through the illusion, the man encounters the hidden sides of his being. But if he remains unaware, he becomes enslaved by it. He will fall in love with the same archetype over and over again, chasing the same emotional pattern in different faces, replaying the same story until awareness breaks the cycle. Every man has known this pattern. He meets a woman who feels strangely familiar, as if he has known her forever. She triggers emotions too deep for logic: passion, fear, vulnerability, awe. He becomes consumed, convinced that she is his destiny. But this intensity is not proof of soulmateship. It is proof of projection. The unconscious recognizes itself before the mind does. And yet, through this illusion, something sacred is at work. The Anima uses the woman as a mirror to draw the man inward. The collapse of projection, the heartbreak, the disillusionment, is the moment of awakening. The man realizes that what he adored in her was always within him. The beauty, the mystery, the depth he sought in her eyes was a reflection of his own soul waiting to be seen. This is where love becomes transformation. When a man withdraws his projection, he no longer demands perfection from his partner. He begins to love her as she truly is, flawed, complex, human. And paradoxically, only then does genuine intimacy become possible. Without the veil of projection, two people can finally meet in truth, not fantasy. But the process of withdrawing projection is painful. It requires the death of illusion, the dismantling of the idealized goddess. It feels like loss, because it is loss, the loss of the fantasy that once sustained him. But beneath that loss lies freedom. For the first time, the man sees both himself and the woman clearly. In Jungian psychology, this stage marks the beginning of individuation, the path toward wholeness. The man integrates his anima rather than projecting her. He develops his inner sensitivity, intuition, and emotional intelligence. The feminine within becomes an ally, not an obsession. And as he reconciles with that inner presence, his relationships in the outer world change. He no longer seeks to possess or idealize women. He begins to relate to them. He stops demanding that they complete him, and instead meets them as equals, as two complete beings walking parallel paths. Love becomes not a transaction of needs, but a communion of awareness. Most men fear this kind of love because it requires vulnerability. It requires him to face the chaos of his own heart without blaming the woman for it. The unconscious is always easier to project than to own. It is easier to worship the goddess outside than to nurture the goddess within. But those who find the courage to do so unlock a deeper form of power. They no longer fall into relationships blindly. They no longer lose themselves in the tides of emotion. They become observers, conscious participants in the dance of love. Jung compared this process to alchemy. Projection is the fire that melts the raw metal of the soul. It burns away illusion, revealing the purified essence beneath. To love consciously is to endure this fire without retreating, to let the illusion die so that truth may live. In this truth, the man realizes something profound. He does not need to possess the woman to experience wholeness. He can appreciate her beauty without claiming it, feel her depth without drowning in it. The woman ceases to be an object of desire and becomes a symbol of unity, the union of his masculine consciousness and his feminine unconscious. Carl Jung taught that the greatest love story of a man's life is not the one he lives with another person, it is the one he lives within himself. It is the story of reconciliation between his masculine consciousness and his feminine soul. He called it the inner marriage, the sacred union of the animus and the anima, the mind and the heart, the logic and the mystery. This union is not about gender or romance. It is the ultimate psychological integration. It is the moment when the man stops searching for completion in the external world and begins to find it within his own depths. Until this happens, he remains divided, half of him striving for control, the other half yearning for connection. To understand this inner marriage, we must first see the two forces within every man. The masculine principle represents structure, clarity, discipline, reason, and focus. It is the part of the psyche that builds, defines, and protects. The feminine principle, the anima, represents intuition, emotion, creativity, and receptivity. She feels where the masculine thinks. She moves where he holds. She dreams where he plans. Most men grow up identifying almost entirely with the masculine side. Society rewards logic over feeling, control over surrender, order over chaos. The inner feminine, his emotions, his intuition, his need for beauty and meaning, is often suppressed. She is deemed weak, unnecessary, even dangerous. And so she retreats into the unconscious, waiting to be rediscovered. But what is repressed does not disappear. It distorts. When a man ignores his anima, she expresses herself through projection, mood swings, or emotional emptiness. He becomes hardened, disconnected from empathy, driven but restless. He may achieve success but feels strangely hollow. He may attract partners but fail to truly connect. The absence of inner balance creates outer instability. The inner marriage begins when a man turns inward and listens, not with his mind, but with his heart. It begins when he stops running from his emotions and starts asking what they are trying to show him. The anger he suppresses, the sadness he hides, the tenderness he fears, these are all voices of the feminine within, calling for attention. In mythology, this process is often portrayed as a hero's descent into the underworld, a symbolic journey into the unconscious. The man who dares to descend faces his fears, his wounds, his shadows. He meets the inner feminine not as a fantasy, but as a truth. She is not there to comfort him, she is there to transform him. She takes everything false, everything rigid, everything arrogant in him and melts it in her fire. This melting is painful. The masculine part of the psyche resists surrender. It wants control, certainty, direction. The feminine offers the opposite: feeling, ambiguity, mystery. But it is in this tension, this sacred struggle between opposites, that true growth occurs. The man learns to balance doing with being, thinking with feeling, strength with softness. The intermarriage is not achieved through intellect. It is lived through experience. It happens when a man stops dividing his life into opposites, work and rest, reason and intuition, love and purpose, and starts seeing them as complementary aspects of one whole. He realizes that his emotions are not obstacles to overcome, but messages to understand. He sees that his logic is not an enemy of love, but its guardian. When the anima is integrated, a man no longer seeks women to fill his emotional void. He begins to relate to them as equals, not as saviors. His relationships become spaces for mutual growth rather than unconscious dependency. He no longer fears vulnerability because he understands that strength and sensitivity are not opposites, they are partners. This inner balance radiates outward. A man who is united with his feminine essence carries a calm, magnetic presence. He is neither too soft nor too rigid. He can lead without controlling, listen without losing himself. His energy feels grounded, whole, complete. He no longer needs to prove his masculinity because he embodies it effortlessly, tempered by the compassion and wisdom of his inner woman. In Jungian alchemy, this union is symbolized by the Konjunktion, the sacred conjunction of sun and moon, king and queen, spirit and soul. It represents the birth of the self, the fully integrated individual who lives from the center of his being. Jung saw this as the highest goal of human development. To become whole is to transcend the battle of opposites within. But make no mistake, this union is not a permanent state, it is a living relationship. The masculine and feminine within are constantly in dialogue, constantly rebalancing. Sometimes one must lead, other times one must yield. The man who lives consciously maintains this dialogue with humility. He knows that peace is not the absence of tension, but the harmony of opposites in motion. In practical life, the intermarriage manifests in subtle ways. It appears in how a man responds to conflict. Does he react with aggression, or does he listen with understanding? It shows in his creativity. Can he allow inspiration to flow, or does he suppress it under logic? It reveals itself in his relationships. Does he seek to possess or to connect? Every choice is an expression of his inner balance. When the intermarriage is achieved, a profound transformation occurs. The man no longer feels split between the world of action and the world of emotion. He becomes both warrior and poet, both protector and lover. His presence brings stability without control, warmth without weakness. He becomes a vessel for higher purpose, a bridge between reason and intuition, strength and empathy. This is the essence of mature masculinity, not domination, but integration. The man who knows his inner woman is not threatened by the outer one. He does not fear her moods, her depth, her power. He understands them, for they mirror his own. He can love her not as an escape, but as a reflection of his wholeness. Carl Jung believed that when a man unites with his anima, he discovers the divine within himself. His love ceases to be a human hunger and becomes a spiritual act. He no longer seeks to possess the world, he seeks to participate in it consciously. The marriage within becomes a marriage with life itself. The masculine learns from the feminine how to surrender to mystery. The feminine learns from the masculine how to give form to vision. Together, they create meaning. Together, they produce wisdom. The result is not perfection, but completeness. A man who can live with contradiction, love without fear, and act without ego. Many men avoid this path because it demands surrender. It asks them to descend into the waters of emotion they've been taught to fear. But the truth is simple. The man who cannot feel cannot truly lead. The man who cannot love himself cannot love a woman. And the man who cannot integrate his inner feminine will forever remain half awake, chasing reflections of what he already possesses inside. The intermarriage does not make a man less masculine, it makes him fully human. It restores balance to a world addicted to extremes. It births a kind of power that does not oppress, but uplifts. The power of presence, the power of understanding, the power of peace. When this union happens, the man ceases to fear solitude because he is no longer alone. He carries within him the dialogue of opposites, the eternal dance of creation and consciousness. He no longer searches for wholeness, he is wholeness. And from this place, he can finally love a woman as she deserves to be loved, not as a mirror, not as an idol to be solved, but as an equal soul walking beside him on the same path towards self-realization. This is the inner marriage, the sacred completion of the masculine journey. It is not the end of love, but its true beginning.